Right, well, so this is Idle Thoughts. I'm your host, Damien Bishop, and I'd like to talk today about someone I met at the bar. This young man, as far as I understand, is what's known as a liberal. However, he is not. That is the best label I can give him. I've heard of these sorts of people on ContraPoint, but I do not know what they're called. Sorry, my face is so close today. My roommate is asleep, and I'm trying not to wake him. But I feel best to get this idea out and forward while it's still fresh. So, I was trying to speak with this young man today, and he was asking good questions in the beginning, about race, about why different groups are the way they are, and every time I went into explaining something, whether it's from a historical or anthropological view, I would get, say, 5 words in, at best a sentence, before he'd interrupt me with another question. Now, I'd like to point out this young man was, by his frame of mind, all about respect. And yet, he doesn't respect the time to hear someone else out. He merely wants to interrupt with further questions that require further explanation. And he was amazed that I did not get up and walk away or strike him in any manner. Very evangelical of him, oddly. So, I appreciate that he has the questions, the will to ask, what's this and why does this exist? I appreciate that. However, he refuses to make a foundation for himself to stand upon, a frame of mind to look at the world. And you do this so you have something to relate to, a measuring stick, as it were. You have a frame of reference so you can relate to the other things that are out there. And the point of that, of asking questions beyond that basic foundation, is so you can build upon that foundation or shape and mold it according to reevaluations. You shape it and grow it accordingly to what you have found, the discoveries you make. And yet this young man refuses to have a foundation. The most I could get from him that was an actual foundation, his frame of reference, was that being a North American Indian, or Indian American, he is the victim of genocide and of poverty. Not the best foundation to work with. Being a victim, that is, means you identify as not having power, as being made powerless. And I myself am a former victim of terrible things. But I do not allow that to define me. Not like that, young gentleman. So, without this foundation, he kept going on and on and on and on about respect. That he respects that we are human beings that can share the same air. Cool. So he has the basic, but he doesn't have the idea of scope or scaling. When it comes down to it, yes, we are all made of stardust. Cool. We are all essentially dirt, like Adam from the Bible. But there are layers to things. He kept trying to point out that I'm white with privilege. Sure, there are things I don't have to deal with, and yet my experience is not better than yours, it's merely different, bro. So, this kid, this man-child, for I assume, being as liberal as he was far younger than me. Could not even listen to what I had to say about the Indian ideology of what is known as the Bindu mark. The symbol that encompasses all of reality, everything that is in and outside of reality, encompassed with a single dot, right? Couldn't listen to that. No idea. I tried asking a question, pointing something out, such as, okay, yes, from the Bible, Eve was made from the rib of man, right? My question to him was, does that make Eve greater or lesser than man? And he merely assumed that it was lesser, and he just kept expounding and wouldn't let me explain. The answer is, if you're made from someone's side, it means you are beside them, not above, not lesser, by their side. It's kind of a duh when you hear it, but most people don't get that. And he is so closed off to new ideas. He kept pushing this non-label agenda, right? That we can't have labels. Sure, that would be nice, but then again, we have labels for spoons and forks. When we say those words, we're identifying two different things with two different purposes. We use labels to navigate the world, and yes, labels can change, but we still use labels, and especially symbols, to represent ideas so we can properly communicate. A big issue, modern day, with labels is the right wing, from my understanding. They have a thing called dog whistles, where they change the labels for the same things. We can't call the specially enabled retards anymore because of reasons. We have to refer to them as something else. So the target keeps moving, but the hate, the stigma, the ignorance is perpetuated. because they can't just talk about the specially enabled as retarded. They have to say it in a different manner that shifts from a week by week to month by month basis. I should take the time to figure out the word to make a label for that problem, for that scenario, because it happens in politics all the time. All the time. So, this young man refused to work not only with labels in general, but he refused to work with a scope. Yes, we're all human beings. Yes, we're all made from star dirt or space dust. A layer underneath that is we're people of the world. Scaling down further, we are people of different countries. And scaling down further, people of regions, and different beliefs and ethnicities. The diversity is astounding. And it means something to each individual. Our identities have value and meaning. I am told I am white, but I do not identify with the white, privileged, established, I can't handle a cuss word, or being around a black guy. People. I hate those people. They're more ignorant than a lot of the street scum I hang with or talk to. And by that, I have yet put another label on a different group in a negative light. Because I have the label I have with a very specific designation. I am not the everyman. I do not hate the intellectuals. I do not love football. And I am generalizing because stereotypes exist for a reason. Labels, my friends, help us identify and navigate the world properly. To just throw them all out the window is kind of insane. But to not have tolerance for any of it is equally as insane. Part of being a modern man is having tolerance for others, because there are a lot of different kinds of people out there. If you cannot tolerate someone who won't stand for anything, who just keeps egging you on and irritating you, you're not a man. You have to let things come to a natural close, especially if they are of the camp of believing that if they have frustrated or irritated you enough to just leave in anger, they have won. This liberal child and evangelicals, and as far as I understand, the right wing, are of the same ideological camp. And just because someone leaves in anger because you are irritating and nonsensical does not mean you win. It means you're an idiot. That you cannot grasp other points of view. That you cannot have a dialogue. That you cannot communicate with others. You are incapable. You're an invalid. Invalid? You are a willfully ignorant degenerate, you fool. I, like Mr. T, pity the fool. This has been a trying experience. Not with the questions of reevaluating what you know, how you came to know it, what you value, what the foundation of your understanding of reality is. It's been trying and difficult because it's so quick. You cannot have a footing. You cannot stand for anything. That is literal scum right there. Anthropologically, liberals push society. They help society grow into new and different forms of understanding. They become the new status quo of conservatives over time. They are, in a sense, our future, and yet this boy cannot have a foundation, for his seeds are so small. It cannot gain any ground. There is no nutrition there. There's nothing for them to work with, just distance. So, I find it interesting that he asked me, why does a fruit bear a tree? And this is some 30 minutes into the conversation, so I'm well aware that if I start explaining, he's just going to interrupt, right? He's just going to be a little bucket of scuds. And so after clarifying this, he actually insists upon an answer. And under agreement that he won't interrupt, I respond with, well, a fruit is the mechanism for seeds to grow another tree, so it can perpetuate and move its generation along. And then I counter his question with, what is the point of being mortal with children? Going along, the discussion of why do immortals always have the curse of never bearing children? But of course, though he doesn't stand for anything, he has an agenda. So he keeps pushing that nothingness of his. It makes me sad. I do pity this ideology of his, because it's like a hummingbird that cannot find nectar, rapidly beating its wings, and finding no sustenance in the responses or answers. And so, within 24 hours, it dies of lack of nutrition, because it won't allow itself to drink. Live long, my friends. And if you're wondering who I am and why this is worth talking about, well, I suppose the best answer to that is, I am. That's why.